World Network and Her Network on the Singo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Singo TV on the respective app stores, iOS and Android devices. While you are downloading, make sure that you rate and leave a comment. The app is free. The Singo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick in all smart TVs since 2016. Welcome to this MomFit episode. I am very excited to be here with Miss Christine McInnis.
You got it. Yeah.
McInnis, because she is an advanced reproductive reflexology and holistic healer, and she loves to support females through conception, pregnancy, and postpartum and perimenopause. As the owner of Willow Therapies, she has offered wellness solutions for years, both online and in her studio, to support hormone function and relief of hormonal migraines and chronic pain. Her education in holistic healing began in 2015 with the study of reflexology therapy. She has since trained in advanced reproductive support, facial reflexology, facelift massage, cupping, gua sha, and spiritual hypnosis. These skills combine to extend the client's mind body connection and support long healing from the inside out. Christine strives to help the women who are struggling to push through the pain feel lighter, brighter, and more energetic so they can truly thrive in this beautiful stage of motherhood. Christine, I am super, super happy to have you here. Thank you for being in MomFed. And let's gonna jump in. Let's gonna talk a little bit. I would love to hear a little bit about your story, how you went into working with moms, pregnant moms, and postpartum moms, and all about that hormonal health.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. Um, yeah, that bio was wonderful. So I pregnancy was actually what made me go down this path in the first place. I was working a fairly typical 9 to 5 type office job with a long commute and looking at, what daycare would look like. And it pushed me to start exploring other career options. And supporting people through a healing modality was something that felt like a really good fit. It was something I was already doing, let's say, as a hobby a little bit, anyways. So while I was pregnant with my first, I worked during the day, and in my evenings, I trained to be a reflexology therapist. And I was lucky to have a really great maternity leave and was able to finish a lot of my training during that. And it was this really great shift into a job where I was making my own hours, but then also having the opportunity to support others in their lives and their journeys. And you can't find a more fulfilling job than that. Like you're helping people have a better day every day that you're at work. Um, and I had a lot of my own personal struggles in the postpartum period. It was not easy for me. I think we all know we have this picture in our head of like what it's going to look like. And, you're just sitting there blissfully on the floor with your baby doing tummy time. Everyone's happy. Everyone's, you know, just going with the flow. Um, but a lot of the time it's not like that. And if it is, that is something amazing and to be cherished. But if it's not, you're far from alone. And that was what I found. Was I had a child that had some health conditions that were undiagnosed, causing almost no sleep. Um, this whole mystery of like, why is my baby crying so much? Lots and lots of sleepless nights and stress. And um, as a first mom, I was thrown into this really hard situation without ever having to think about my own self care and making time to take care of myself. Because until then, I had always had the time. Like it was never a challenge. Um, So all of that combined to really both make me look at like my training and my career and how that to support myself, what resources were available to me. And then as I started to kind of come around to where it wasn't as hard, um, I started seeing all these people around me, especially, my mom friends and in my community that were struggling too. So I had the opportunity first to study reproductive reflexology, which is geared more towards preconception and fertility, but does an amazing job of teaching about the hormones throughout all stages of our health as females. And I was just so lucky. My teacher is from the UK and she came here. I'm located in Canada. Um, and she came here to teach a group of us that were interested. And then that was followed after about 6 months later by one of her kind of friends or colleagues from the UK coming to teach maternity reflexology. So I was lucky to be able to be trained by a midwife who also is trained in reflexology, has combined the two, and shares that knowledge with practicing reflexologists. Um, so that really allowed me to kind of focus my practice on helping women through their parenthood journey, both before they get pregnant, while they're pregnant, and in that most needed postpartum time, which so much of our support falls off then, and that's when we need it the most.
Thank you so, so much.
Yeah.
And I would love to talk with you because there are several things that are powerful here, right? The first one is, and this has been a theme, and that is part of what I work with my private clients and what I work with my group coaching, and that is there is something weird that happened on that fourth trimester, on that postpartum, because a lot of us struggle. And still, we all find about it after the fact, after we are struggling.
Mm,
And that create a lot of anger. Like I remember when I was struggling, and then I start after I was struggling, finding other moms
mhm.
saying, "Yeah, that happened to
Yeah,
me too. Yeah, I feel like that too." And I was like, "Ah, why nobody told me this when I was pregnant so I could prepare?" Probably was my engineer mind. I'm
yeah,
always proactive. I'm always trying to plan ahead. So I was very frustrated to see that, and then as that is one of the reasons why I jump in to help moms, not only pregnancy but postpartum. But one of the things that I realized is part of the lack of information is that there is not enough of us that make the decision to work before we forget how horrible it is. Because I was actually talking about this with another guest. One of my big hypotheses is that God or universe or genetics, whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
create us in a way that after 8, 9 months of postpartum, our mind literally switch and forget all those hard times. Because I truly believe that if we didn't forget about that, probably 99% of us will only have one child. And then humanity will end in like 2 generations.
Yeah.
So let's gonna go into that hormonal health during pregnancy, because one of the things that strike me the most, and I love that you talk about this, is how we can differentiate between something that is common in postpartum and something that is normal in postpartum, and why it's so important to thrive and have support into that postpartum
Mhm.
fourth trimester, and I will actually even say the first 18 months of your baby while your hormones start getting
Yes.
balanced. So what is all about this hormonal health on postpartum starting in the fourth trimester and go up to the 18 months, and what are some of those common versus normal hormonal symptoms, and how our moms, especially our pregnant moms? So I want you to touch in two ways: the pregnant moms, that
Okay.
nobody else is warning them about this so they can be prepared and they don't get it like you or me, and then also the mamas that like you and me didn't knew about it and are in the middle of the storm right now.
Mhm. So we'll talk about pregnancy first then. So like our bodies go through like insane changes. So we have a huge increase in hormones, in progesterone and estrogen during pregnancy. Our the amount of blood we have in our body increases. The amount of relaxin we have in our body increases. So our ligaments get much softer. We go through these fairly extreme body changes. And all of that is going to, affect how we feel. So that increase in progesterone and that increase in estrogen is actually going to work um, to support an increase in kind of like mood or a sense of well-being. Um, Now, obviously, there could be other symptoms that come along with it that don't feel good. But that increased progesterone is what makes us sleepy. You'll notice, especially first trimester, when you're just like so dead tired, exhausted. That's our bodies starting to feel this increased progesterone, but not really having adjusted to it yet because it increases so much. So that tiredness, totally normal, totally good. Go rest, sleep if you can. I find the best way to reduce symptoms with my clients is to honor what your body is asking you to do. So if you're feeling exhausted, rest. If you're feeling out of breath, do your physical activity, but slow it down. Just listen to what your body is telling you. It's normal for your hips to feel different as those tendons shift and change. It's normal for you to feel twinges in your belly as things are expanding and shifting. But where it doesn't get normal is when it's starting to turn into pain. When you have, that chronic lower back pain or hip pain or SI joint pain. Um, and I think a lot of us see that image of the pregnant woman who is hobbling or is throwing up all the time or um, is generally just having a really hard time, and we're like, okay, that's just pregnancy, it sucks. But there is a point where there are things that can help with that. Like some nausea and vomiting, totally normal. Um, but it gets to a point where it can actually cause problems like dehydration and other issues. So you want to make sure that you're talking about it, and hopefully having a good health provider who can also support you when things kind of reach that point where um, it's okay to seek treatment for these symptoms. But one of the big things I see is that joint and hip pain and people toughing it out, and there's so much that can be done um, for that as well. Um, so if you're feeling like pain, if it's stopping you from living your life, that's the time to start talking to people and trying to seek that support.
What about I want to concentrate a little bit more on like the postpartum part,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I was not clear. I want you to help
Okay.
us to focus
So,
on the
like when you're
postpartum.
in pregnancy, how to prepare for the postpartum.
Yes,
Gotcha.
because that is the
Yes.
one that nobody told them, and then also when they are already in postpartum. So what happened with hormones in postpartum and how that can affect us, and
Yeah.
the taboo of what is common, what is normal.
Yeah. And I think what helped me was understanding that there was hormonal shifts happening and it wasn't just me and my brain and my thoughts. That was huge. So all of those hormones that have increased during pregnancy, that increased progesterone, that increased estrogen, all of those just rise, and then you give birth and they drop. And your body had more time to kind of acclimate to those hormones during pregnancy as they built up. But when you are postpartum, that drop is huge. It is so much for your body to be going through. So we hear about the baby blues, and that's often like the third day blues, is what I was taught as well, which is where our body really starts to react to that change in hormones. So our progesterone drops, our estrogen drops. And then we have prolactin, which increases, and that helps our body produce breast milk. If we're breastfeeding our babies, that prolactin is going to be there and continuing. But it also suppresses estrogen and dopamine. So those feel estrogen's a feel good hormone. Dopamine is what gives us that, kind of pleasure surge after doing something rewarding. Um, And those are suppressed by the prolactin that's helping us breastfeed. So it's completely normal to have a lower mood and to want to move more slowly during that phase. Um, what can become a problem with that, though, is if in our pregnancy period we maybe didn't have as great nutrition, which I know is not easier said than done. I had 9 months of nausea with my first kid and was not going into my postpartum in a great state. Looking back now, I would have done other things. I would have introduced bone broth. I would have taken, more supplements to help support my body that I could tolerate. Um, Instead, I just ate cheese and crackers for 9 months, which got me through. But there were more things I could do. But if you're coming into it without that great nutrition, if you're coming into it, maybe you had a lot of pain and you weren't sleeping well, so you're sleep deprived, and then you have that hormone crash, it can just amplify everything. And that's where it can turn from the baby blues that kind of last for a couple weeks and your body starts to even out a bit. And that's where it can turn into something more. And what you really want to be aware of that, like how that can happen. Um, so I like to, with the postpartum period, to have encourage people to have kind of a plan set up for when they feel low. So before you're there, while you're pregnant, be like, well, maybe I'll feel great, but if I do feel really low, I want like a clear idea of the steps to take as a first line of defense. Because sometimes just the sleep, nutrition, hydration can reverse that low mood. So I don't think people understand when before they have a kid how exhausting and how mentally draining that first period can be. So even just remembering to drink water, like, oh, well, it's easy to drink water. I just go and fill up my water bottle. It's not that easy. Things become hard. So having a plan, if you have a support person, like really, I did this with my second kid. I had my toddler. I made a game out of it. He'd go fill up cups of water for me, and like it was like his a fun little chore. But have a plan for how you're going to hydrate yourself, feed yourself, and things that need to be cooked or heated up are often not going to actually happen. So if you can do that, but also have like easy little snacks that are high in protein, because protein is huge postpartum for that mood and blood sugar regulation. And then a plan for sleep, because it's really, really hard when we don't get enough sleep. And that's going to amplify everything else that's affecting you. So when you're pregnant, if you have a partner at home, talk to them and make a plan of how you're going to get like, and my goals were small. I needed 1 4 hour stretch of sleep. Everything else I could kind of nap when the baby sleep, but I needed to prioritize 4 hours solid, no interruptions. And it took planning to get that because my baby didn't sleep for longer than 2 hours at the most. So for about 8 months, it was a long run. Um, but I was in the stage where I was already sleep deprived and suffering and having all these problems when I first went to my partner, and I'm like, I can't do this. We need a plan around sleep. And it's so hard to have good conversations and set up plans when you're at your wits' end.
I
Um,
I think that that is so important because when I was struggling with my postpartum depression and anxiety, I remember myself after we talked and underlined that it was not something that was something serious. I remember her looking at me and say, "The first priority is we need you to get at least 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep
mhm,
this week. Not every day if you cannot, but at least once." And then as soon as we start trying to do that, I felt that
yeah.
change immediately. And I was laughing when you were talking about the water because you did it with your toddler. I still carry these 2 bottles came from hospital with me. One was
Nice.
for him, one for me. But then my husband knew from pregnancy. That's one of the things that I work with my moms too, is how to make that plan ahead of time. He knew that one of his jobs was that I will never have an empty water bottle.
Yes.
So he knew that that was one of his jobs. I didn't have to remind him. I didn't have to think that, oh, honey, can you feel this? No, he knew since the beginning. Then uh, always water with me. So I love that you were saying.
Yeah. And I love that you gave your husband a job to do, because that's the other thing too. Like, I know my partner struggled with not knowing what to do or how to help, because I was obviously having a really hard time. And because I was in that state, I was just like, just help. But he was like, help with what? Looking back and having conversations about that time now. So it's almost like, we work to set up a birth plan. I don't know who else out there wrote out a birth plan. I had a really great birth team, and we just had like guidance around decisions, but still we talked about, we planned. I did way more time thinking about the birthing process and planning for that than I did for postpartum. So if we had taken the time to maybe sit down as a couple and create a postpartum plan, that would have helped immensely. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure what happened with the. Okay. So there's just a little bit of a glitch with the, I think, connection there. Um, but creating that plan for like really basic things, like one thing I did is I having a shower every morning. I didn't do that with my first. With my second I did, and it helped greatly. So I just arranged with my partner, he's not going to go to work until I've had that shower in the morning, because it made me feel so much better for the day. My second kid, I had that fun little game with my toddler to get me water. um, and yeah, he spilled water, made a bit of a mess, but it was so worth it, kind of in the great picture. And then setting up that plan around sleep, because it was probably around 4 months postpartum with my first that I set up that plan with my husband to get me that 4 hour stretch of sleep. Um, and I would have to go sleep in the basement with earplugs in to be able to get that sleep. And it wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And then once you kind of put the effort in for a little bit and you saw the results of it, you're like, yeah, that was the right thing to do. Because us personally, as the birthing parent, that those hormones are not working in our benefit in that stage, and that's where community and support is so important. And I think we don't have as much of that in general as we used to have. So if you don't have um, a partner that's active or around, if you can have a parent or a friend, or work it out so someone can come by every day to like actually help you out and give you a break, and make sure you're getting your needs met, um, is the best and first step, really. Um, but we also need to like recognize that the hormones change throughout that postpartum period. um, so how to find support when you feel there isn't. So one thing, and like a lot of these are so hard because they take resources. One thing that I discovered, actually not until after I had my second kid, was postpartum doulas are a thing. So if you have the resources, you can hire someone to be that person for you, and they'll come and they'll do the night stretch, or they'll come and they'll make you food, or they'll do your laundry, or they'll help you out with whatever you need to be able to be the parent that you need to be. Once again, takes resources. But if you can like set up an arrangement with another mom where you can be that for them and they can be that for you, and kind of trade that support, um, that's another way to try to work that out when the support's not readily available to you. Um, yeah, because that support is huge. And then of course, find the mom groups in your community. Here where I am, we have a public health nurse who is kind of like your go-to person if you have questions like my kid has a fever, I don't know what to do, or um, I want to find a lactation group or something like that. So those people, I think we feel nervous about reaching out or asking stupid questions. Those people are there to support you and want to connect you with as many resources as possible. So if you have um, a kind of a health professional or a support that you can reach out to, that can like kind of be your go-to to hook you up with resources, that's something that's really great to ask your midwife or OB about beforehand, before you give birth, and then have those numbers on your fridge, easy to go. Um, I think I got a printout um, from my midwife that I still have on the fridge, which is great because I can pass it on to people around me and share that. Um, the other thing I like to do, and this is because I'm coming from a background as a reflexology therapist, but reflexology uses the um, all right, I'm getting notes here through the text, so I'll keep replying to that. Um, yeah, so the I want to touch on something that you can do for like 5 minutes a day that can make a huge difference. I'm coming from a reflexology background, so I love using pressure points on the hands, the feet, the face to help to naturally balance and support our hormones. It can be hugely powerful. Um, and another thing that can be hugely powerful is breathing. And this can be done even when you don't have time to stop. I found when I was postpartum, I started to breathe a lot through my chest. Anxiety can make you do that. Also, when you're hunched over breastfeeding, that changes how you breathe as well. So, trying to consciously take some time every day to put your shoulders down and back, take some deep breaths into the belly and out. And when you breathe out, really feel that belly rounding out. And as you breathe in, feel your belly button moving towards your spine. That's called diaphragmatic breathing. And it not only helps to reduce anxiety and deepen your breath, it helps to kind of massage all of your inner digestive organs. It's really great for helping with your vagus nerve, which is one of those things that goes when you're in a state of stress. And it's really great for evening the mood, the hormones, and your digestion. Okay, so you wanted me to touch on a 5 minutes a day challenge. Did you want me to kind of just give steps or actually guide through a 5 minute?
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to tell you is, and this is why moms are amazing. So Christine, thank you so much for get put in the spot and run with it. We have some tech issues, and I was back stuck in the backstage, and you rock it by yourself while we figured out that. So thank you so much. A couple of things that I love for what you were saying is that I think that is so important. Is I love your list in the refrigerator because
Yeah.
the unfortunately, especially when we are pregnant, we I think Hollywood society is being, like you were saying at the beginning, putting in us that mindset of, oh, everything is going to be perfect. I'm gonna be just singing to my baby, sleeping, and everything is going to be
Yeah.
happy. But I love how you are talking about preventive and say, have a list of resources preventively. If you go into postpartum and you are in that percentage of the population that don't need extra support, kudos, mama. But if you are in that percentage of the population, like you and me, that actually is closer to 40% of the moms, then you don't have to stress in the middle of the storm to figure out resources.
Mm-hmm.
You already go to the list that you have there and say, okay, I need this. Actually, I love what you were saying about your discussions with your husband, because when we're in the middle of the storm, it's a lot harder to find help, to get support. And I will tell you my own story with breastfeeding. Is I have issues with breastfeeding. I never thought about getting a lactation ICBL lactation because I was like, oh, breastfeeding is normal. Then when I had the problem, I had to like scramble to find somebody to help me and support me. So now, for
Mm-hmm.
example, one of the ones in the list that I always tell my moms, meet with a lactation consultant when you are pregnant. get the connection, get the relationship. If you never need her again, awesome, good for you, mama. If you need her, you already are ahead of the game because you have a connection. um and the other thing that I was laughing in the backstage when I was hearing you is your husband saying, how I can help you. Because the reality is, our partners, our family, our friends, they all want to help, but they don't know how. So
Mhm.
one of the things that all mamas, both in postpartum, if you're in postpartum right now, or if you're pregnant, make a list of the things that will help you because they are different
Mhm.
for all of us. If you have OCD and you get stressed, if you get a tiny little bit of dust in your furniture, put that in your list.
Mhm.
Groceries, a lot of things, so that when people ask you, how can I help? You can just literally take the list and say, this is my list, pick
Mhm.
something. Because what I found in my postpartum, and I want to hear your opinion as well, is people will say, how I can help. I was
Mhm.
already sleep deprived. I was tired as F. I was feeling depressed. I was feeling like a failure as a mom. I didn't have energy to think in my brain how they could help. So, with my baby in my arms, my answer 99% of the time was, thank you, we are fine.
Mhm.
No, we were not fine, but I didn't have the mental capacity to say, hey, you know what? Maybe do the dishes, maybe do the laundry. So, two things from the mom perspective, as more you can have a list, as more
Mhm.
you can just refer to the list. Hey, I will even say,
Yeah.
pin it next to your front door. If you want to help, these are the things that you can help. And then if you
Yeah.
are a caregiver, if you are a friend, a family member, a spouse, please don't ask a new mom how you can help. Get your initiative feelings and just show up and start doing something.
Mhm.
Just say, hey, by the way, I'm gonna stop by and make a load of your laundry. Hey, by the way, I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
by and pick up your grocery list and do groceries for you. Take the initiative, and then in that way, you can also take a little bit of the burn from the mom if she unfortunately don't have that list prepared.
Mhm.
Because just asking what you can do to help is not helpful because she literally doesn't know at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of brain fog that happens after pregnancy, both because of that hormonal drop. That drop in estrogen actually like is very similar to a lot of the perimenopausal, the menopausal symptoms of that brain fog, that lack of concentration, how like forgetting words. But then we've also our brains almost like kind of reprogrammed to be hypersensitive of our baby's needs, which means that we aren't sending as much of our mental energy to things like these very like mentally focused tasks like making the list, figuring out what needs to be done, communicating in a clear and concise manner. Like our brains just aren't wired to do that at that stage. So having someone who just comes over, and I do appreciate someone um like telling me what they're going to do before they do it, because that's another area of like kind of feeling invaded. That was there for me. But I love how you say that, like, I'm going to come and get your shopping list and do your shopping. That was hugely helpful for me when people would do that. Or I'm going to come mop your floor. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know I wanted that. And then the floor's clean, and it just things feel so much lighter after, right? um and then they have the opportunity to say, no, I don't want that. Because for me, I had a lot of issues with some things being done because people would put things in different places than I normally would, and then that would lead to a lot of stress for me, and I would end up like crying on the kitchen floor because I couldn't find the vegetable peeler. And I can't really train someone where everything goes, and now someone comes and puts it in the wrong place, it's no big deal, but in that moment it was a big deal. So I like kind of having an opportunity to be like, well, no, maybe not that task, but can you think of another task? And then with the list, so I do participate in like a number of kind of mom groups, and I interact with a lot of both pregnant and postpartum parents. A lot of people are concerned that the list will come off as rude. So they don't want to make a list because they feel like they're just, either they think it's rude or the family on the receiving end think it's rude and cold and distant. Um, so that's another situation that you can talk about it kind of third trimester pregnancy and being like, hey, so I know, this might not be a thing, but it might be. Some people have a lot of trouble, communicating how they need help and support after they give birth. So, just in case that's something that comes up, I just want to talk to you about how I can communicate that to you. I think what would be easiest for me is having a list. And then when people ask how to help, I can just give them a list. I don't want it to come across as if I'm being, bossy or cold about it. But I think this might be the easiest way for me. Is that okay for you? Um, and then if not, working out a different way to do that. Even just doing like a shared um, like notepad file on your phones that other people can access and look at might be another way. But talking about it beforehand, because there can be, especially for like first time grandparents that might be really wanting to help, it's very confusing for them too. They haven't done that before. They don't know how their daughter or daughter-in-law is going to be after giving birth and dealing with postpartum. Um, so having those conversations when there isn't all of the hormonal drop going on is huge. And it might feel weird because I know for me, I never really had to have a lot of serious conversations with my in-laws for sure, and maybe my parents to some degree before I had kids. And now we have like a pretty, like, I'm so lucky. I'm very grateful I have very involved grandparents on both sides. So now we're having a lot of these conversations, but you don't have to wait. Have them before. So there's not that
Right.
hard feelings.
I love that because probably from that mindset of being effective and being an engineer, it's the proactive. In Spanish, we have a saying that I don't know if it's going to make any sense in English, but in Spanish, we have a saying that says, the one that punched first, punched twice. So, as more you can be preventive, as more of you can be proactive, as more you are going to be ahead on the game, ahead of on the fight. Um, and one of the things that for all of you, because I know that some of you moms can be like, maybe have very pushy family members, or your personality is challenging to ask for what you need. So the other thing that you could do is create a list. And like Christine was saying, I will even go into in your Facebook and make it public and make it fun and say, hey, I've been searching and I just watched these two mamas on this MomFit TV show, and they were talking about how helpful is for first time moms to have a list. And I'm actually gonna give it a try because I don't know what I don't know. So I may not need it completely, but if I do, I'm gonna try to make sure that this my experience is as good as possible. So the reality is, even if you're feeling some of that resistance of asking for what you need,
Mm-hmm.
you can even say that there is other experts in the world when you are doing research that are more and more telling moms that this is something that is going to help not only with their hormonal balance, but with their
Mm-hmm.
mindset and your mental health in postpartum. And I will say that we can even start thinking that it's going to be as similar, in my opinion, as you putting things in your baby shower. You don't
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, I'm not going to put anything in my baby shower because it's going to be rude that I ask specifically for this blanket or
Yeah.
this thing. You ask for what you want for your baby, and then they are free to give you something from there or not. I want us to start seeing our requests as new moms in postpartum the same way. This is the list of the things that I really will appreciate help with, and then is their responsibility to choose if they want to do any of that, or then like you were saying, come back and say, hey, I don't know about any of that, but what do you think about this?
Mhm. I love that analogy to the baby shower registry. because most of us do that, and that's not seen as strange or rude or anything along those lines. And um, and every first time mom has a ton of stuff on their baby registry that they're never going to use. and and I mean, I don't think people generally give them a hard time about it. So having a list and not giving people a hard time about it is another really great way to support, and it's not that dissimilar. And same thing if you do get things that are on your registry and they're kind of like things that are marketed to you but you never really use. In the long run, like, you don't go back and think, oh my goodness, that was like such a awful thing. You just think, oh, okay, that was a silly new mom thing. Okay, and then you move on with your life. So even then, if you put things on your list that seem a bit ridiculous, that's okay. Somebody might do it, somebody might not do it for you, but there's no harm in putting it on your list. So,
I love that. Okay, so I was intrigued because you have a 5 minute day challenge that we want to talk to, and
mm,
then that is connected with finding support when it feels like there is none. Because I
yeah,
think that that is one of the most haunting experiences that we have, and that is on those dark moments, on
yeah,
those long nights, we all feel that we are the only mom in the world, that we are the only mom in the world struggling, that we are the only mom in the world. And then I will tell you my own experience. I feel really guilty because that was like this hallmark moment that I always saw my friends and society enjoying. And I was like holding my baby in the middle of the night, crying, saying, what is wrong with me? That I cannot just be completely happy and excited and
mm, mhm,
fulfill with this precious baby. I am broken. I'm a bad mom. So
yeah.
let's wanna circle into that, finding that support and that very briefly, what is that 5 minute day challenge?
Okay, so doing something for 5 minutes a day is so powerful. You try to do a longer exercise, you're often just not going to like have it happen. So I recommend taking 5 minutes. Everyone can find 5 minutes, even if you just put your baby down for 5 minutes and go to another room in like safe space, of course. And, spend a couple minutes breathing. So you can spend the whole 5 minutes just doing that diaphragmatic breathing where you're feeling your belly go out and your belly go in. You can count. I like to breathe out for 4, hold for 2, breathe in for 4, and hold for 2. So counting while you're breathing into your belly and back. If you want to combine it with some reflexology, you can do this either at the same time or do some breathing and then this. So I'll just show you. You have a point on under your pinky. So you kind of follow your pinky down until you reach a natural dip. And then on the other side, you follow your thumb down until you reach a natural dip. And you can just hold those 2 points and just very gently, I'm kind of pulsing back and forth. And that's your uterus and your ovary reflex points. And that's what we use in reflexology to support with a lot of hormonal balance. So that can really help when you're having those changing hormones, um, to help bring that back into balance. And it's not going to hurt if it's not your thing. It's give it a try. It's a very calming feeling. And then the other point I like to use is if you make kind of like a bowl with your hand right in the middle, your thumb will naturally settle into a point, and then pressing that, and I like to press down while you breathe in, and then release while you breathe out, all while doing that belly breathing in a kind of like a calm and regular fashion. So 5 minutes a day, just of that in a quiet spot can make a world of difference to your hormone, how quickly your body gets back to hormone balance and your mood. So I highly recommend doing that. And I don't know if I gave you the link. I do have like a 5 minute guided video that goes through that I do offer for free to people. So that
I
can
love
be
that.
found.
I will love that. Before we start closing up the episode, because when we are having fun, time flies.
Yeah.
I want you to touch very briefly into how we can honor our body and what our body's telling us and don't fight against it. So if our body's giving us a message, how we can just listen to that message and take action in it.
Hmm. Yeah, our bodies are incredibly wise. So, um, it's really just about the mindset of not trying to push through, and like you said, just listening to your body. So, in this 5-minute exercise, if you do notice a certain symptom or part of your body feels like it's like drawing your attention, just take a moment to be like, okay, what is that about? And then start to figure out if there's something that it can be. If you're feeling aches and pains, there could be a postural thing. If you're starting to get migraines or headaches postpartum, um, tuning into your body's probably going to tell you your posture's kind of bad. Your body might be telling you, oh, I need water or I need food, or you'll start to just kind of notice things that you might need. Don't double think it. Just go and try to fill that need and then reevaluate. Um, and then seek the support from a complementary healthcare provider, your doctor, your community nurse, um, if you feel like you need more to get back to balance.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Christine. As we start wrapping up, I would love to ask you to give our mamas around the world one advice, one thing that you wish somebody told you with your first baby or even with your second baby. And then after that, share with us how they can connect with you if they want to learn a little bit more about reflexology and all the other beautiful things that you do.
Hmm. My one piece of advice for postpartum is, oh my goodness, one piece. Feel push through that guilt of putting yourself first. Fill your cup. You'll feel wrong for doing it, and it's normal to feel guilty for taking care of yourself. I think most of us do. Do it anyways, because your baby will be better off if you are in a good and healthy place.
And now, how they can reach you.
Okay, so I love showing up on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Willow, WILLOW underscore therapies, THERAPIES. I go live every Friday with free guided routines. I love suggestions on symptoms, times of life, areas of reproductive health to support. So please DM me if you have a request. And this can be a great way to get your 5-minute routine, they're about 5 minutes long. Request whatever you're struggling with. I'll do a live and it's something you can go back to. I'm on the web at www.willowtherapies.ca. Um, and that will be kind of able to link you up with any other kind of services, questions, or ways to connect with me.
So thank you so much, Christine. This was so helpful. I love how you give the mamas very practical tools like the
Yeah.
reflexology points, the breathing, and then also how you are reinforcing in the world the message of, I love how you say, like, if I took even half of the time that I put into my birth plan into my postpartum plan, I
Mhm.
probably will not be struggling. And actually, I never thought about it like that, but I love it. And I think that is genius. And that is how we can start keep teaching these moms that, yeah, your birth plan is important. But if you think about it, birth plan is for 1 day, maximum two. Then what are you going to be planning for the first 3 months, 4 months? So thank you for that. Thank you for all your
Mhm.
wisdom, for your love, for your care. I can see your passion into helping moms. It was such an honor to have you here with us. And I am looking forward to keep continue learning from you. And for everybody else, please know that this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.
Mhm.